Yeah, cool. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Construct Strategically, Jan's Dandy. Today I've got Timo. Timo is a vertical transportation expert, which also means he supplies lifts and escalators all over the world. It's Finland, China, Singapore, New Zealand now.
We do, yeah. We're present in 70 countries around the world at the moment, so it's basically a global company.
Yeah.
Originally from Finland, we've been growing across gradually over the past 110 years.
Yeah. First off, mate, thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit more about what you do for Kone.
Okay, so thanks a lot, first of all, for having me here. So I've been with Kone for 21 years by now, so in different countries, different roles, but at the moment I'm leading the business in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And came here 3 years ago, looking at how we can best serve the market over here.
Right. So you're the regional manager for the whole of New Zealand.
That's correct.
For
yes.
Kone.
Yes.
That's design, supply, install.
Yeah, we deal with builders and architects initially. So looking at what kind of equipment we specify into the building, then we do the initial designs, order the equipment from our factories, and then we do the installation and after sales service as well, the maintenance.
Yeah. So it's a pretty niche market, though, isn't it? There's Kone and then there's Schindler.
Yeah.
There's no other players in the market.
It is a pretty niche market as such. I mean, it's sort of you need to have the volume for it to make sense. So the equipment itself it's relatively costly, but it's needed. So without our equipment, you can't have apartments. You can't build vertically without elevators.
You can't go up and down. It's moving people up and down as well.
Exactly.
It's buildings built as well.
Exactly. And we look at the trends that's happening globally. I mean, people are moving into cities, so urbanization, it's not going to change. People are getting older. People tend to have longer life expectancies nowadays, and it creates a kind of a market. It creates a need basically for the society to actually have more elevators and more build vertically.
Yeah, interesting.
So
just talk us through your career. You worked for Kone for what, over 20 years now?
Over 20 years, yes.
Wow, that's a long time to be working for one company.
It is a long time for one company, but to be honest, it feels refreshing in a way. I mean, being in a multinational, we have the opportunity to transfer to different countries, different roles. So I started off as an R&D engineer back in Finland, just out of university. Got the opportunity to move to Japan, spent 5 years in Tokyo. I went for a short stint to China. It was supposed to be only 2 years, but I ended up spending 8 years in our escalator factory. So it's one of our biggest in the world. From China, I was looking at probably returning to Europe, but then there was an opportunity in Singapore. So I jumped on it and went south instead of going back west, and spent 3.5 years as head of Q&S for APAC. And again, from Singapore, looking at potential returning to Europe, but then an opportunity opened itself up in New Zealand, and I figured I'm taking it.
You're taking it?
Yeah. It was sort of, I never imagined that I would ever live in New Zealand, so it sort of came out of the blue, but...
How are you finding it in New Zealand?
I'm enjoying it, actually.
Love it?
I love it, yeah. It's got its challenges of being a relatively small market compared to other regions, other countries, but the good thing is when it's a small market, you get to do everything.
Yeah.
So it's really a kind of... you need to be a generalist, you need to understand your business, but on the other hand, you need to understand how to run a company as well, and it's quite exciting.
Yeah, I bet it is. So if you just, you've got a lot of overseas experience, right?
Yep.
So what are some of the challenges that you're finding when you compare the New Zealand construction industry to the global construction industry? What are the key differences and the key challenges that you're finding?
I think one of the big challenges that I could pinpoint directly is sort of decision-making speed. So it's pretty slow in terms of okay, let's say there are the intents to build, but then I'm going from intent to getting consent to actually be allowed to build, to getting the funding for it. So typically in other countries, we might be hearing about a project 3 months ahead of tender, and then we tender and we sell and we deliver. In New Zealand, we start working on stuff a year before we actually get the orders booked. So it's very different in that sense.
She'll be all right, mate.
She'll be all right. Yeah.
She'll be all right.
She'll be all right.
She'll be all right. No, I mean, that's one of the reasons. I kind of find the same as well. The amount of time taken for a decision to be made is quite significant in New Zealand, and a lot of people don't understand the cost that's associated with that indecision for that period of time, which is quite significant.
Yep.
The cost of running business goes up. Everything goes up. You have idle labor for that period.
Yeah.
There's a whole heap going on in the background, and people don't appreciate the importance of time. I mean, if you look at my job is time management.
Yep.
And so I don't think I could be a planner. You know, I mean, it's quite challenging. It's like you've got to manage that time and account for that extended period of indecision.
Yeah.
Which is
it's a lot about building a kind of a pipeline. So if you start a business in New Zealand, I guess the time it takes to actually get your first orders in, that's pretty costly. But once you have a steady pipeline coming in, then it's manageable.
Yep.
Today's situation, of course, with everything that's going on in the world, with ships not coming into New Zealand, so builders not having material, COVID, of course, through, I think sick leave levels were at unprecedented levels as well. So lots of delays that we've seen in quite a few jobs. So it's thrown a kind of a new spanner in the wheels in terms of unpredictability.
Yeah.
So just being able to plan. So we try to do a kind of just-in-time service. So basically, based on
your shipment arrives, you want it on site, not stored in factory.
Exactly.
Ideally.
Yeah. Ideally, yes. So we allow for a couple of weeks normally, but then due to the supply chain constraints, some of our customers have wanted us to order the equipment well in advance to make sure that once it's here, it's ready to begin. That of course comes at a cost, like you mentioned. I mean, time is money.
Sorry, hang on. Time is more important than money.
Time is more important than money. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could take away all the money I have.
Yep.
No problem. Yeah. I can make more money.
Yep.
I can't manufacture more time.
True.
Hence, time is more important than money.
That's a good point.
Yep.
That's a good point.
I can't make time.
No,
I can make money.
That's a kind of a resource that it's a limited resource.
100%.
At some point in time it ends, but I think it's definitely it's harder to plan now.
Yeah.
Both for us and for our customers as well. Expectation to begin, and especially with equipment coming in from overseas, it's you have the lead time from our factories coming into New Zealand. We have the time it takes to clear the ports in New Zealand, and I guess the market size of New Zealand is so small as well that for global manufacturers, it's not so attractive in a way to send equipment to New Zealand. So we've had ships coming in with equipment, but due to the time they've been waiting in the Gulf Harbor, waiting to come into the port, but then due to delays they decided to just keep on sailing and going somewhere else, and then
right. Yeah, because I mean, what would it, let's say a 40-story building.
Yep.
Elevators for a 40-story building. How many containers full would you have of equipment?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I don't actually know the answer to that one.
Right,
so that's it's a huge amount of steel going.
No, I'm just trying to assess whether it's going to be half a shipment or what does that quantum look like? Because I can visually see it in a 3D model, and I've seen that all laid out.
Yep.
But when it's all collapsed into a container, what does that look like? I was just trying to picture that in my head.
I wish I could give you an answer here,
That's
but
okay.
Unfortunately I can't.
That's okay. Sorry.
You called me an expert, but I'm not. Unfortunately, not in that space.
No, you told me you're the generalist and you run the business.
Yep.
I'm sure you can make a call to somebody who has the right answer, and that's the most important thing.
Probably yes.
Yeah. Now, let's step back to the differences.
Yep.
From the New Zealand construction industry to the global industry.
Yep.
Once the time taken to make decisions in New Zealand is significant.
Yep.
What else are you seeing? What else, or have you seen as part of your long career traveling worldwide?
Well, when I look at New Zealand in general, it's a pretty low-rise market. So we look at
low-rise.
Low-rise, yes. So we look at I mean, on the one hand, it's on the population itself, but if we look at the city of Auckland and compare it, for example, to Singapore. So Singapore has 5.5 million people on a land space that is smaller than Auckland.
Not much smaller than Auckland.
Not much smaller, much smaller, yeah. And the result is, and of course, in New Zealand, traditionally, the preference has been for people to live in detached houses. And I think we're going through a transition at the moment. So intensified housing, we talk about more apartments, more townhouses, and it's a change that we're going through at the moment.
Oh yeah, and with Kainga Ora, they're building a lot of apartments as well.
They are,
if you keep an eye on the market, you can see all the apartments to solve the housing crisis. They're building a whole heap of low-rise apartments, like you say, 6 stories, 8 stories, high apartments.
Yeah. And We do quite a bit of work with Kone as well, so it's actually it's good to see that the quality of the builds are improving as well. So I mean, I haven't seen, I've read the results about previous builds. I mean, all the wet homes, moldy homes, and
leaky
these
homes?
things, leaky homes. That's a word, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
I'm working on a few leaky home jobs.
Yep.
Yeah. So I know a bit about them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lucky we don't have those issues anymore, but yeah.
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 But there's definitely, I think it's an interesting space because you have a huge amount of you have some established builders who know very well what they are doing. Then you have quite many new companies coming in as well, foreign investment coming in who have not worked in Auckland, and they run into all kinds of hiccups as they go.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure they do. Can we just literally touch on the construction aspect as well?
Yep.
And some of the challenges you as lift builders would face in the New Zealand construction industry. Yeah. So technically, to install a lift or an escalator.
Yep.
I mean, I'm talking just from my planning experience. Yep. You'll need a roof on, and you'll need the building watertight.
That's pretty much it. Yes. We need to have a shaft in place, and then we can start.
Shaft.
Yep.
Steel, structural steel in place to support the lift. Yeah, sure.
Yep.
But ideally, the roof on, building watertight.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. How often do you run into delays on jobs in New Zealand specifically?
After we begin, or
no, before
we begin, I'd say frequently. Frequently.
How frequently is frequently?
Frequently is if I look at our planning accuracy, it's I would put it in the order of about 30% at the moment.
Right. So what you're telling me is 30% of the time you're getting given dates to when the roof's on and the facades will be on.
Yeah.
But it's only on time 30% of the time.
That's correct. Yes. So just looking at how constantly moving the milestones, and I think there's a kind of an optimism when we have our site managers. They visit the building sites ahead of schedule, ahead of delivery, to talk to the builders, talk to our customers to understand that when is it going to be ready.
Yeah.
And I guess the further out you look, the harder it is. I mean, we tend to try to forecast the delivery 3 months ahead.
Right.
In order to start manufacturing, getting the equipment into New Zealand, and then we get it on site within, let's say, 1 to 2 weeks after the ship arrives. That's what we consider pretty good already. But as things go, we come closer to the delivery date, the equipment might be on the water already, and then there may have been any kind of delays. And then, okay, sorry guys, can you deliver 1 week later or a few weeks later? And I think that's the kind of the hardest part, really, to get that part sorted.
So the builder delaying you is not so much of a critical problem for yourselves?
Well, it's basically, I guess the problem, it comes in terms of, it's, how would I put it? So the problem mainly becomes for us when we look at labor planning. So we try to lock in the labor resource to do the actual installation. And when the builders are delayed, then our guys don't have work to do. So then we might assign them to go to another job instead. And when the original builder is ready for us to come on site, we might not have the people. So then we are again delaying. So it's a bit of catch-22 in that space. Yeah.
But then the most interesting part is 9 times out of 10 on any high-rise building, you're either on the critical path or you're really, really close to the critical path of the job being complete.
That's correct, yes.
So that must be some intense, high-pressure environments for your people to work in, which you're constantly working on, doesn't matter what building you go to.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I wouldn't put us as such into the actual critical path of the building itself. So when I look at the super high rise, so we're looking at the 85 customs that's coming up the seascape down in the CBD. So due to start early next year. Of course, there have been some challenges in general with the project. It's a bit delayed, but on the whole, so once we get in there and we we're actually introducing a new product. It's basically, it's called a jump lift, so we don't need the building.
I know a jump lift.
You know what it is, yeah?
Yeah, we use jump lifts on Commercial Bay.
Ah, yep, okay.
So I was a planner on Commercial Bay.
Ah, you were there, okay.
That's the first time Schindler came up with the jump lifts.
Yep.
But I'll let you explain it. You can probably explain it much better than I can.
Yeah, it's basically, it's all kind of a time saver / productivity improvement thing for the builders. So instead of having the alimak up against on the facade.
Can you define what a jump lift is though?
Yes, so jump lift is basically, it's a lift so we can put it in before the building is ready. So
fully watertight?
Exactly. So basically we put a kind of a deck on top of the shaft, whatever it is, and that part is watertight. We install the elevator temporarily running the lower floors. The builders can continue building, and the contractors, they can use the lift to get material up, get themselves up instead of climbing stairs using the alimak.
Yeah, and you have a temporary machine room parked at a floor or two floors above where the temporary cap is.
Yeah, we basically use a kind, I mean, we call it a kind of a cat head, a kind of an installation time platform. So we actually jump it up about as the building progresses. So then we do a jump, so we raise it higher up. And
so you move the machine room, you move the cap.
That's correct.
Install some rails.
Yep.
So then
and then make it available again.
Yeah, because the most important thing of building a high-rise is how quickly you can move material and how quickly you can move people.
Exactly.
And you're enabling that, which is crazy cool.
It is. We introduced recently, we've done it for low-rise buildings as well.
Oh, does it work on a low-rise building?
It does, yes. We have just introduced a concept. So basically we can do it with our machine roomless elevators nowadays, a kind of a jump lift.
Yeah.
It starts to make sense, I would say, when the building is 8 to 10 floors or taller, then it starts to make sense. If it's below that, then no real value, I would say.
Yeah, because by the time you put a temporary machine room in and cap it at say level 4, your structure's already up there. So you build the whole thing.
Exactly. So it's
whole lift. It's a fun product.
It's been pretty successful in especially in Europe and also in Asia Pacific.
Yeah.
Introducing it to Australia. We're looking at if there are opportunities in New Zealand, we'll definitely do some jobs here as well. But at the moment, like I said, it's mainly low-rise builds going up. So.
Yeah. My biggest understanding of lifts and vertical trans came in Commercial Bay.
Yep.
Yeah, it was.
Did you spend the whole project there, or?
I spent the last 2 years on that project.
Yep.
The last 2 years through the completion.
Yep.
Where we revised the entire lift methodology to. We saved a bit of time on that project. That never made it to the news, but because we were so far delayed.
Yep.
the part where we saved time never there's no light shed on it.
Yep.
But we're pretty stoked on how much time we saved by introducing jump lifts, which is extremely cool. Yeah.
And it does make sense. And you look at alimaks tend to be fairly slow.
Yeah.
You take up additional space as well, so there's quite a.
I think the biggest problem though with an alimak is that you can't get fully watertight.
True.
Yeah, you can't get the facade through. You can't get fully watertight, which means you have that one bit that's exposed to weather, whether that be water, wind, whatever it may be, and you just got that open for however long. So the last bit of fit out, that entire square meterage, just at the entrance of the alimak, it's got to wait. And so if that last bit's waiting, your commissioning's waiting. Your commissioning's waiting. You can't
do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a big rush at the end to finish the whole job. No, that's interesting. Can I ask you, what are the innovative ideas Kone is working on to kind of assist the high-rise building move people and material up and down the building quicker?
Yep. I think the jump lift concept is probably the biggest innovation in this space. So we've had it in high-rise buildings for quite many years already, but the introduction of it to low-rise buildings, or let's say medium-rise, that's
mid-rise.
That's new. So that's a concept we launched earlier this year.
And is there much uptake in the New Zealand market?
Not yet, no. So when I say low-rise again, it's basically I'm talking about 10 stories and up. So so the builds tend to be
below 10 stories.
Below 10,
yeah. Even most of the Kaingora ones, only 8 stories, I think. 8 to 10 stories is...
between 6 and 10 approximately, so that's...
but there are a whole heap of other mid-rise apartments.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what's your strategy for trying to get it into the New Zealand market? Talking to me for one?
Talking to you for one, of course. Thank you for the opportunity.
No, okay.
I'm looking at it. I think it's more about. First we need to. So when we're working with, we work with consultants. We work with architects. So identifying the actual projects. So just marketing something when there's no project for it, no real demand. I don't think anybody would think about building a tall, let's say a 15-story building just because we have the concept available. So
yeah.
It's more when we have that kind of project, so that's when we start talking about.
I think it's more about how you portray the time savings a jump lift would provide to a mid-rise market.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that'll come time savings. With time savings would also mean quicker usage of the lift for people in material movement. That'll be. Yeah, I'm not sure how you'd portray that. I mean, I know how I would because I write the program.
Yeah, no, that's normally what it is. So it's specifically it's time saving.
Yeah.
So especially in that's the biggest value of having a jump lift for builders. So time.
Yeah, 100%.
You can't manufacture time, so.
There you go, man. You got it. You got it.
I'm learning.
You're learning. We're both learning, I guess. We're both learning.
Yep.
Yeah. Is there any other kind of interesting innovations that you guys are working on?
I'd say.
I mean, you do move people and material up and down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what we are looking at. Specifically, if we look at the construction itself, so we're looking. I mean, we talk about lean concepts. So basically, how can we make
smarter, faster, better?
Smarter, faster, better. How do we make our installation process faster? How do we eliminate waste from the process? And it's a lot of it is about having an agreement. Where do we store our material on the building site, keeping it as close as possible to the shaft. That's pretty much what it is.
That's from a process perspective.
That's from a process perspective, yeah.
Yeah.
From product perspective, I think our latest innovations, they are more interesting for the building owners and the tenants, especially when we talk about digitalization and IoT. So we have, I don't really care about music in the lift. I'll be honest. Yeah, but if you're in a hotel and you can call room service and you have a robot delivering it to you, the robot talks to the lift and it's all automated.
Oh, cool.
So it's a big uptake in China. There's a huge market for it. Singapore's massive.
Yeah.
We've done a couple of
robots doing room service.
Yeah,
interesting.
Cleaning robots as well. I mean, cleaning robots have existed for a long time, but typically they can only stay on one floor, and then you need to have somebody to drive them up to the next floor. But with our latest lifts, we can integrate them to the lift, so they can call the lifts autonomously.
Yeah.
Sign-in systems. So if you have a kind of a visitor kiosk at the lobby to the office, you can have if you have your office on 25th floor, for example, so then you have a guest coming in. Typically, a sign-in kiosk tick, you get a notification. Please come pick up your guest from the lobby, and you go all the way down to the 25th floor.
Interesting.
That can be connected as well, so that instead of you having to come down to pick him up, it can unlock the lift. Tell him or her which lift to take up, and then it's already unlocked, and all access is just straight up to your floor.
Yeah, right.
We have navigation systems. So we've been working with a company out of Australia called Bindi Maps.
Yeah.
Initially, it's like Google Maps but indoors.
Yeah, right.
So initially, the idea was
so you map an indoor shopping mall.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Initially, the idea was specifically as guidance for visually impaired people.
Yeah.
Voice activated, and we get those to talk. I mean, as a guy told me from Bindi, he basically said that the braille plates are good, but how do you find the braille if you can't see it? You know. So it's you get the phone talking to you, and you get it integrated to the lift itself. So we've got and they found that it's actually in shopping malls. It's brilliant because you go into a big mall. You want to know which shop to go to, how you find it.
Yeah.
So we got some goodies installed in our office. We got Bindi Maps installed. We got mobile call. Calling the lift with your phone. So we're working on the integration as we speak. So hopefully within a few weeks.
That's from a user's perspective, though.
From a user's perspective,
right.
Yeah.
So come back to the construction.
Construction, yeah.
Come back to just basic construction, right? What are the challenges you're facing here in New Zealand? Here. What's bothering you guys a lot?
I think it's.
Is there something that a builder could do to make your life easier, or is there something you could do to make the builder's life easier, apart from the jump lifts which you've spoken about?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think I guess the planning is definitely a big topic. I mean, we spent probably 15 minutes talking about planning and the challenges that come with it.
That's my full-time job.
Yeah. We've got. I think engaging early with the builders, having the kind of understanding that what we're actually delivering, having a kind of a solid communication in terms of what we need to have what we need to have in place to be able to start the project.
That's a really interesting thing you say, right? So I had Martin Edwards, who's a construction methodologist, earlier on in my podcast, and I asked him the same question. I said, how could you deliver projects on time?
Yeah.
And he said, get the builder engaged early.
Yeah.
I'm here talking to you who's a product supplier and an installer on site, and you're giving me the same response, which is get us engaged early.
Yeah.
Would you say that isn't happening and the builders are calling you just in time?
I would say it's happening to some extent. So there are big differences from builder to builder. So with some, especially ones we work with regularly, we have pretty good communication and we understand what our needs are. When there are new builders, so then it's a little bit more difficult in terms of aligning with the expectations that what we need to have in place to be able to start. And I think those are where we tend to run into hiccups during the process. So just getting them meeting on site and, hey, hang on a second, the roof's not even here yet and you want us to start tomorrow.
Exactly.
What's up,
Yeah.
And so I think that's a kind of space where we can definitely do more. Just having the alignment, I guess, initially. So, typically we work with the designers, the architects early on before builders.
Just talk me through the process, right?
Yep.
So let's say you get a set of drawings, you know the equipment you're supplying.
Yep.
Then you go through a shop drawing and manufacturing process?
That's correct, yes.
So you go through a shop drawing process, then a manufacturing process to manufacture lift overseas, I'm assuming.
Yep, correct.
Get it shipped into the country.
Correct.
Ready for installation.
Yep.
That's your general process.
That's the general process, yes. I guess it's what's happening before getting the set of building drawings. It's really getting into, talking with the architects early on, what are their plans for the building.
Right.
And then helping the architects to make sure that they have the right dimensions in place to fit our equipment.
Shaft dimensions?
Shaft dimensions, yeah.
Yep.
So if they don't know what kind of constraints there are, what requirements there are, then it's much more difficult to get modifications done once all the building drawings and everything is approved.
Yeah.
So we try to get in as early as we possibly can.
And you work with the architects when they're at design phase as opposed to when they go for a consenting phase?
That's correct, yes. So we try to get in. Basically once with the, sometimes we go in with the builders, so they contact us and ask, can we fit into this shaft space? Can we tender to this building? And we take a look at those, of course, and if we fit, then we submit our offer what it would be like. But ideally, if we get in really early, then it's easier for everybody.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so let's say hypothetically I was a construction student, and if I was really passionate about vertical transport.
Yep.
What should I be doing to get into the world of VerTrans?
Okay, that's also a good question. So we're running apprenticeship programs, so that's a good way to get on.
Yeah.
Get on. So we have at the moment we're looking at increasing actually the amount of apprentices next year.
Oh, cool.
So really looking.
So here's a tip, guys. If you're looking for a job in VerTrans, hit Timo up. He's got some internships and apprenticeships out.
Thank you. So we're looking, like you said, it is a bit of a niche industry.
It's massively niche.
And many people I talk to, they don't even think about the vertical transportation as a potential career opportunity.
Right.
And building buildings, yes, that's obvious, that's visible, but elevators, they just exist and they go up and down.
It's a massive challenge. Like I don't know what lift well flushing was.
Yeah.
I had to learn about lift well flushing for a job, and I was like, oh, okay, that's new for me. And no, it's crazy things that go on with escalators and elevators, which you use the equipment, you just don't think about
exactly
the mechanics behind the whole lot, or the methodology that was used to install all of that at that height. It's quite cool.
And keeping it alive, then also, I guess the expectancy is that a lift should last at least 20 years. 2025 is a kind of rule of thumb.
Yeah. A decent amount of time.
It's a decent amount of time.
Yeah. So what happens after that 20 years? Do you replace the lifts then?
Yeah, we normally we start talking to our customers when it's about 15, 20 years old that they need to start planning, start budgeting at least for upgrades. So we can do, I mean, options are we can replace the entire lift, or then we can do modular upgrades. So we can replace the machinery. I mean, do a refresh of the car interior. Different options are there.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. Anyways, mate, it's been great having you on the podcast. Thank you for all your insights into lifts and the challenges you're going through.
No, it's an interesting discussion. I mean, it's
100% it is. It is. I mean, but yeah, it's been great talking about lifts, and word transfers. There's not enough importance given to it in the industry as well. So it's been amazing having you on it. Is there any questions you have for me, or is there anything else you want to tell the audience? Feel free to.
I guess. How would I put it? I guess a kind of a challenge that we have. I mean, if I call it a challenge or call it an opportunity, is really looking at our new digital offerings and these things. So typically, builders, they are not really interested because they build a building and they want to get it done
and get out.
And get out, basically.
Yeah.
And how do we get to work with them developers at an early stage so they understand what we have to offer? And get it through the entire chain, then getting it so builders understand what it is, and we just so many opportunities out there, basically.
And massive opportunities. You just got to keep looking for them, don't you?
And and I think New Zealand, I mean, used to, at least what I heard is that it used to be a kind of call it a digital playground in a way.
Yeah.
That quite a few new technologies used to be tested and tried in New Zealand before exported elsewhere. And at the moment, I feel that it has slowed down a bit.
It's expensive.
It's expensive, of course.
Cost of labor is
true.
Crazy expensive here.
True.
When you compare it to other countries, it is crazy expensive.
It is.
Yeah, and we geographically spread, so
pretty remote. Yep. That's it.
We've got our challenges. Yeah.
We do. But it makes it fun.
No, for sure. I mean, working together, I'm sure we can overcome them.
Definitely.
So it's part of the reason why I started the podcast as well, to bring group people together. But anyway, Timo, thank you so much for making the time to be on the podcast.
Appreciate it.
Really do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll have you back on here soon.
Sounds good.
When you got some really cool innovation.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, mate.